In the quiet darkness beyond Earth, a silver alien ship floated behind the moon, hidden from human eyes. Inside the ship, Commander Varek stood still, staring at the blue and green planet through a glass window. He belonged to the Dravari race, an old, peaceful, and advanced species that believed in knowledge over war. For many years they had watched other planets from a distance, but Earth was different. At first, Varek thought humans were just noisy creatures, always fighting, always shouting. Their history showed endless wars, strange weapons, and chaos to him. They looked like children with fire in their hands, dangerous and wild. But still, something made him curious. Why were humans still alive? Why didn't they destroy themselves? His ship's scanners picked up strange signals from Earth. Military exercises. Varek zoomed in, watching a field where a group of soldiers tested a missile. When it exploded, the blast shook even his ship's outer sensors. He blinked, surprised. That energy. It was powerful, even by Dravari standards. No other young species has ever made something like this, Varek whispered. He turned to his ship's eye. How old is this weapon type? He asked. The AI replied in a calm voice. First used over 700 Earth years ago. Varek's heart sank. Humans had created weapons this strong before they even had real computers, before they touched space. That was not normal. That was frightening. He sent a message back to the Dravari High Council, warning them about the power of Earth's weapons. But the only reply he got was silence. No one believed humans could be a threat. Varek knew he needed to learn more. Watching from space wasn't enough. He activated the ship's stealth system, slowly drifting toward Earth. Once inside the atmosphere, he landed in a forest, far from cities. Then, using a cloaking device, he walked among humans, invisible and silent. Varek entered a nearby town, blending into crowds. His translator allowed him to understand everything. He visited museums, libraries, and news stations. And then he found a place called the National War History Museum. Inside, he saw walls covered with photos of explosions, tanks, guns, and soldiers. There were videos of past wars, people crying, running, buildings falling. He moved slowly, trying to understand the madness. Then he saw it. A metal object stood behind glass, long and round, with symbols written below. The sign read, "Little boy, atomic bomb, used in 1945, first nuclear weapon used in war." Varek froze. His hands trembled as he whispered, This is from centuries ago." He stepped back, mind spinning. The humans didn't just invent these weapons. They used them, and then they kept building more. Why? He asked himself, why would they keep making things that can destroy everything? He turned to the museum video. A human general spoke in a calm voice, saying, "Sometimes, power is the only language enemies understand." Varek felt a chill crawl down his back. The humans weren't just builders of weapons. They were masters of fear. He left the museum quickly, walking under the gray sky. The wind felt heavy. The people around him smiled, laughed, lived normal lives, as if nothing had happened, as if they didn't sit on a mountain of fire and destruction. Varek returned to his ship that night, sitting in silence. He reviewed more human history, the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the nuclear arms race. Every time humans got close to total war, they pulled back at the last second, as if something stopped them. They could have ended themselves many times, he whispered, but they didn't. His AI spoke again. Human survival rate after World War II was expected to drop, but they adapted, they rebuilt, they grew faster than any known species. Varek sat quietly, looking again at the Earth. It didn't look dangerous from up here. It looked beautiful, peaceful, but now he knew the truth. Below that beauty was a storm controlled by hands that knew pain too well. Varek stared into the blue oceans and green lands. They don't avoid war because they fear. He said softly. They avoid it. Because if they wanted to fight, they would win too easily. The screen blinked. No new messages from the Dravari High Command. Virek closed his eyes. "They need to know," he whispered, "before it's too late." Outside, the stars shined quietly, but for the first time in his life, Virek was afraid, not of humans attacking him, but of what they might become if pushed. He looked back at Earth one more time and whispered to himself, "They had this almost 1,000 of your years ago." The Earth was quiet at night, but inside his ship, Commander Virek couldn't sleep. The silence around him felt heavy. Not peaceful, not calm, just heavy. He sat alone in the observation chamber, staring at a digital screen filled with human history, pictures, videos, text, and strange sounds all played at once. A timeline moved slowly across the screen. From the year 1914 to the present day, his sharp alien eyes studied everything, line by line, death by death. The more he read, the more confused he became. 2 world wars in less than 50 Earth years, he whispered. And then a third war that never even happened. Yet it changed everything. He had never seen anything like it in Dravari culture. War had ended over 10,000 cycles ago. There were no guns, no bombs, no armies, but humans? They had nearly wiped themselves out before even landing on the moon. Virek focused on a period called the Cold War. It wasn't a war in the usual sense. No battles, no soldiers clashing in the streets, and yet the tension, the fear, the power. It was more terrifying than any open war he had studied. The screen showed black and white videos, men in suits talking into microphones, others sitting beside giant machines covered in buttons, red phones. Glowing maps, one name kept appearing, nuclear weapons. Humans had built thousands of them, enough to destroy the Earth many times over. And then they just kept building more. Virek leaned forward, shocked. They prepared for a war that never came. And the whole planet stood one button away from extinction. One document caught his eye, a military file labeled, "Mutually Assured Destruction." The idea made no sense to him at first, but as he read, it became clear. If one nation fired a nuclear weapon, the others would fire back. Everyone would die, and no one would win. It was madness, and yet it worked. No one dared to start the war, because everyone knew how it would end. They kept peace, Virek whispered, by designing the end of everything. He rubbed his hands together slowly, thinking hard. Why would a young species, so full of life, choose such a dark path? He asked his ship's AI, how many nuclear weapons were ever built? The AI answered instantly. Estimated peak inventory, 70,300. Year, 1986. Virek's fingers switched. 70,000. He repeated. His voice was shaking. He clicked on a video. A human general from the 1960s speaking to a crowd. The man said, "We do not want war, but if it comes, we will end it quickly." Another file opened, this one from a soldier's diary during a nuclear drill. The entry read, "They told us we had 4 minutes to say goodbye. 4 minutes until the missiles arrived. 4 minutes to hug our kids, pray, or scream." Virek couldn't look away. This wasn't fiction. This wasn't imagination. This was real, and somehow the humans lived through it. The AI spoke again. Despite decades of global threat, humans survived, civilization advanced, technology grew, space travel began. How? Virek asked, more to himself than the AI. How did they not lose their minds? But he already knew the answer. Humans were adaptable. More than any species he had studied. They could cry and laugh in the same day. They could destroy a city and rebuild it taller. They remembered pain. But they never stopped moving forward. He watched a video from 1989, when 2 countries ended decades of hostility by tearing down a wall. Families reunited. Soldiers cried. Children born into fear were suddenly free. The human heart, Virek realized, was strange. It held both darkness and light at the same time. No logic, no system, only emotion, raw and wild. But that emotion, that chaos, created something more powerful than any technology. Hope. Virek leaned back in his seat. He wasn't sure if he felt admiration or fear, maybe both. The Dravari were wise, but slow. Peaceful, but cautious. They had studied for centuries, but humanity? Humanity learned fast, burned bright, and walked through fire with their eyes open. He turned back to the display, opening one last video, a United Nations speech. The human speaker said, "We have enough weapons to destroy the world, but we choose to build peace instead, not because we are weak, but because we know what war really costs." That sentence echoed in Virek's mind like a hammer striking metal. He stood up and stared out the window at Earth, glowing peacefully below. "They're not just dangerous," he said quietly. "They're experienced." The AI beeped. Suddenly, breaking the silence, "Commander." Second alert sent to the Dravari High Command. No response received. Virek narrowed his eyes. "They're not listening," he muttered. "They still think humans are primitive." He turned off the screen, his mind racing. Earth was not a planet full of simple creatures. It was a storm wearing the mask of a sunset. A calm sea with monsters deep below. "They learned from pain," Virek said. "They fear war. Not because they will lose, but because they know exactly how easy it would be to win." Outside, Earth kept spinning, quiet and unaware of the silent observer watching from the shadows. But Virek knew something the galaxy didn't. Something even his own people refused to see. Peace on Earth was not weakness. It was a choice, a warning, a final line drawn in fire. Commander Virek had seen enough from screens and simulations. He needed something real. He needed to feel the ashes, smell the burned soil, walk where humans once bled and screamed. He didn't want data anymore. He wanted truth. The ship's AI tried to stop him. "This mission holds high risk," it warned. But Virek had made up his mind. If he wanted to understand what made humans so terrifying, he had to step into the places they had tried to forget. He flew to a part of Earth marked as inactive conflict zone. A forgotten battlefield buried beneath time and dust. No soldiers, no cameras, just silence and rusted metal beneath overgrown weeds. The ship landed quietly in the ruins of a place once called Eastern Europe. The region had seen wars. Not long ago, wars that never made it to human movies or museums. Only the people remembered, and even they tried to forget. Virek walked through shattered buildings, burned trees, and collapsed bunkers. He scanned the air. Traces of old gunpowder still lingered in the soil. He picked up a rusted dog tag. Its metal worn but still readable. Liam K., age 19. A child, he thought. Sent to fight in a war he didn't start. For a reason he probably never understood. Inside one ruined house, Virek found a photo, faded by time. A smiling woman stood with her husband and a baby in her arms. All three were gone now, but the picture remained. A quiet echo of lives once lived. He sat on the floor and played a human documentary through his portable screen. It was an old interview with a soldier from the same region. The man's face was tired. His voice low. "We didn't want to kill, we just didn't want to die," the soldier said. "I still see their eyes at night, the ones I shot. I can't forget." Virek paused the video, staring into space. These weren't just soldiers. They were broken minds inside armored bodies. They didn't celebrate war. They carried it like a wound that never closed. A memory surfaced in Virek's mind. His own people had once studied the effects of conflict on alien species. None had survived long after reaching Earth's level of violence. They either destroyed themselves or were destroyed by others. But humans had looked into the fire and kept walking. He stood again, moving deeper into the ruins. There was an old war bunker half buried in the ground. Inside, the walls were covered in drawings. Hearts, names, prayers, curses. One sentence stood out, written in shaking handwriting. "Forgive me, I wanted to go home." Virek placed a hand on the wall, feeling the pain trapped in those words. The Dravari had known fear, but never this kind of fear. the fear of killing and still losing. Suddenly, his portable AI blinked. New intelligence detected. Unauthorized satellite feed active. He tapped the screen. Live footage began to stream. It showed a recent military drill somewhere across the ocean. Soldiers loading weapons. Tanks rolling through deserts and something else. Something strange. A drone camera was tracking an unidentified object falling from the sky. Then, a flash. Bright, fast, blinding. The object exploded mid-air, turning into dust before it even touched the ground. The eye zoomed in and analyzed the footage. Origin, unknown spacecraft. Destruction method, classified human defense system. Varek's heart skipped. That wasn't just any ship, he said slowly. That was Dravari. He double-checked the symbols on the hull fragment. Yes, it was theirs. A diplomatic vessel that had come in peace, and Earth had erased it. Not with fanfare. Not with panic, but in silence. No news coverage, no announcements. Just quiet removal. They knew, Varek muttered. They knew someone was watching. And they sent a message. This wasn't fear. This wasn't panic. This was control. Strategy, silence wrapped in steel. Earth didn't scream its power. It whispered it through action. He turned off the drone feed and stared at the night sky through a hole in the ruined ceiling. The stars twinkled above, innocent and far. But Earth was no longer just a blue dot in the darkness. It was a warning flare in the void. Varek didn't need more proof. He didn't need more data. He had felt it now. The scars of war, the pain of those who carried it, and the cold. Logic of a species that had mastered violence not to use it, but to end it before it could begin. As he walked back to his ship, the soil crunched under his feet. Beneath the dirt, there were bones, memories, and old fire. He had stepped into the past and found the future staring back. The eye greeted him at the ramp. Commander, Dravari Command has gone silent. All fleet communication lost. Varek didn't flinch. He simply looked back one more time at the Earth and whispered, "They don't make weapons to win wars. They make them. So no one dares to start one." Asterisk. The silence was louder than ever. Commander Varek sat inside his ship, staring at the empty communication screen. It had been days since the last message from the Dravari High Command, but this silence wasn't natural. It wasn't peaceful. It felt broken. His ship's systems had checked everything. No signal interruptions. No space interference. The Dravari fleet hadn't gone dark by accident. Something had happened, and Varek had a terrifying idea what it might be. He stood up slowly, his long fingers hovering over the control pad. "Show me Earth's global defense network," he ordered. The ship's SI responded. "Partial data available. Human systems remain highly encrypted." That didn't surprise him. Humanity had mastered something far beyond weapons, secrecy. Their ability to hide power was just as dangerous as the power itself. He zoomed in on various zones, deep in the Pacific Ocean, under the Arctic ice, buried in mountains. He found strange patterns, satellite signals blinking out for seconds, heat signatures rising and falling without any surface activity, submarine signals that disappeared mid-ocean without reason. All of it pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Earth was watching the galaxy. Just as the galaxy was watching Earth, suddenly, his ship's alarm beeped. Unauthorized signal detected. Origin, Earth satellite uplink. Varek's eyes narrowed. The humans had found him, not fully, not yet, but they had sensed something. He knew what he had to do, if he wanted to learn the truth. He couldn't hide anymore. He had to walk straight into the fire again, into the shadow where Earth kept its real power. He activated his cloak and launched into Earth's lower orbit, landing quietly in the desert zone marked as restricted. It was called Nevada, but to some humans, it had another name, Area 51, a myth to many, but not to him. Varek infiltrated the underground base through a hidden ventilation shaft. His scanners showed levels of technology far beyond what humans displayed publicly, not just aircraft or weapons, but energy sources, AI systems, and alien metal signatures. Then, in a sealed hallway, he found something that made him stop breathing. A body, not human, Not Dravari, something else. Another species. Scorched and frozen in a glass tank. The label said only one word: failed invasion. Next to it was a file stamped: Earth Defense Protocol, Tier Black. Virek accessed the file with the stolen translator chip. The document wasn't just about weapons, it was a warning system, analyzing every species Earth had encountered or suspected. Names from across the galaxy appeared on screen, species Virek had only read about in deep records, and some that hadn't even contacted the Dravari yet. Earth had mapped the galaxy like a hunter studying prey. In the final section of the file, he found chilling words. If they come, we end it before it begins. Silence is safer than war. And then, a live feed opened, footage from a satellite near Mars. A small Dravari ship, a diplomatic scout, slowly approaching Earth's orbit. A second later, it vanished. No explosion, no sound, just gone. Erased by something invisible, controlled, precise. The Earth had responded. Without a word. Virek stumbled backward, gasping. No broadcasts, no retaliation, not even a warning. This wasn't defense. This was execution, silent and clean. He turned around and froze. A voice spoke behind him, calm and deep, in perfect Dravari dialect. You were warned not to interfere. Virek looked up slowly. An Earth agent stood there, fully armed, eyes locked with his. The man wasn't angry, not scared, just aware. You've seen enough, the agent said. Now you understand why silence is our strongest weapon. Virek tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. He didn't know whether to beg, to run, or to listen. The agent handed him a small device. Take this, he said. Send your message home. If anyone's still listening. Then he turned and walked away. Disappearing into the shadows of the base, Virek held the device tightly. He knew what it was. A signal booster, rare, powerful. With it, he could speak across systems in real time. But as he climbed out of the base and launched back into orbit, he wasn't sure who was left to talk to. His home fleet was silent, his world too far. And now, he feared Earth had already delivered its message without words. As he floated above the Earth, he looked down at the planet that still glowed with life. Oceans shining under the sun, clouds drifting softly, and yet, beneath that beauty, was something else. A planet that had learned war too well, and now avoided it like a god avoiding his own fire. Virek tapped the device and began his transmission. To anyone who still hears me, he said, do not test them, do not speak unless invited. Earth does not beg for peace. It offers it once. He looked out the window, his eyes filled with fear and awe. And if you refuse, they will erase you, not loudly. Not in anger, but like a shadow fades in light. Commander Virek had crossed lines he was never meant to approach. Now he stood in a place no alien had ever returned from, captured, unarmed, and watched by eyes that had seen far more than he ever imagined. Virek was not inside a prison, nor inside a lab. He was inside something far worse. A room with no fear, no panic, no rage, just control. The walls were smooth, white, but alive with hidden tech. The air smelled clean but felt heavy. Every second inside made Virek feel smaller. He wasn't being interrogated. He was being studied. Two humans entered the room. One male, one female. Neither wore military uniforms. No guns, no armor. Just black suits and calm eyes. The woman spoke first. You walked too close, Commander. Her voice wasn't angry. It was soft, almost understanding, but beneath it, Virek felt a chill. You've seen things, the man added. Things you were never supposed to understand. Virek stayed silent. His instincts told him to speak, to plead, but another instinct, deeper, older, told him not to say a word. You think your kind discovered Earth, the woman said, but Earth discovered you long before you arrived. The lights dimmed, and the wall in front of Virek became a screen. It displayed a list of alien species, some known to the galaxy, some extinct, and some that had never made it beyond whispers. Each name had a file, and every file had A single word stamped at the bottom, neutralized. Vereka's voice finally broke through. "You've fought others?" "No," the man said. "We studied them, then we made sure they'd never want to fight." The woman stepped closer, holding a small black box. "Inside this is a recorded broadcast," she said. "It's never been sent yet." Virek didn't move. "It contains one message," she continued. "Not a threat. Not a warning, just facts, numbers, maps, weapon yields, and timelines. If we ever send this out into the stars, it won't be to scare anyone." "Then why?" Virek asked. "To remind them," she said, "that Earth does not strike first, but it also does not strike twice." The man touched the wall, and a new image appeared, a rotating 3D model of Earth's hidden defense grid. It wasn't just missiles and satellites. It was a network of silence, black AI systems, invisible signal jammers, cloaked orbital platforms, and underground cities built for extinction-level events. "You still think our greatest power is war," the man said. "But it's not." Virek blinked, confused. "Then what is?" The woman smiled, not cruelly, just calmly. "It's that we've already imagined the worst and survived it." Virek was escorted down the hallway, but not like a prisoner. No chains, no guards. Just quiet footsteps and unreadable glances along. The walls were pictures, not of war, but of history. A child with bandaged hands standing in rubble. A nurse crying over fallen soldiers. A city once destroyed, now glowing with light. Humans had turned every wound into a weapon. Every tear into fuel, every scar into strategy. He entered another room, smaller, darker, colder. There on a long table were pieces of alien technology, Dravari, others, even unknown components. Earth hadn't just collected alien ships. They had studied, reverse-engineered, and improved them. A young human scientist passed by and whispered to another, "This one's tech is elegant, but still 10 years behind." Virek shivered. They were comparing his people's most sacred creations like old toys. He was escorted to the surface shortly after. The sky was just turning orange. Earth's sunrise breaking across the horizon. It looked like any other sunrise, but Virek saw it differently now. Not beauty, but a warning. The man and woman stood with him one last time. "We're not monsters, Virek," the woman said. "We're survivors," the man nodded. "And we've learned that in a universe full of teeth, it's better to be silent until someone gets close enough to bite." Virek stepped onto his ship, still trying to breathe, still trying to understand. His ship launched, leaving behind the desert. But not the fear. Once in orbit, he sent one final log to the galaxy. His voice low, broken, certain. "Earth knows the cost of war, and that is why they don't seek it. But if they are ever forced to rise, they will not fight to win. They will fight to end it." He sat alone in silence, staring at the slowly shrinking planet below. The humans hadn't avoided war because they were afraid to lose. They avoided it because they had already imagined what it looked like when they won. Commander Virek's ship floated through the darkness, stars blinking quietly around him, but none of them offered comfort. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suffocating. He had sent his warnings. He had shared what he saw, but there were no replies, no voices from the Dravari High Command, no signal from his home fleet, just echoes, static, and empty space. He stared at the console, eyes unblinking. "Repeat transmission," he whispered. The AI obeyed, broadcasting his message again, the one about Earth. Their weapons, their silence, their strength. But Virek knew it was too late. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and Earth had noticed. His ship finally reached the edge of the Dravari system, but instead of greeting lights and traffic beacons, there was nothing. No patrols, no welcome pings, not even orbital drones. Just silence. He moved closer, scanning for life, scanning for signs, scanning for anything. Then he saw it, his home planet, once shining with silver cities and bright energy. Lines now floated like a dead moon. No lights, no movement. No atmosphere storms, only stillness. His heart slowed. Impossible, he whispered. He scanned for heat signatures. None. No bodies, no machines, no signal of life. It wasn't war. It wasn't destruction. It was something worse. Abandonment. He landed on the Capitol platform, expecting at least a whisper of survivors. But the halls were empty, every room clean, untouched, like people had simply walked away one day and never returned. And then he found it, carved into the stone of the High Council's floor, stretching across the chamber in giant letters, deep and deliberate. Peace is offered, not begged for. Varek stared at the words, frozen. His breath shook. Earth had been here, but they didn't bomb. They didn't burn. They left something heavier, a message. This wasn't an attack. This was proof. Earth could reach anyone, anytime, and leave. Behind silence instead of ruins. His legs gave out, and he dropped to his knees. No one believed me, he whispered. Now there's no one left to believe. He opened one of the old command terminals. It still worked, buried deep in emergency power. He found logs, broken pieces of conversations before the system fell silent. One line stood out, repeated again and again. Do not provoke the silence. Do not test the calm. The Dravari had seen something, maybe a ship, maybe a signal. Maybe Earth had sent them a choice, peace or disappearance. And they chose wrong. Varek sat alone in the darkness of his once proud civilization. The stars above looked the same, but now he knew better. Behind their light were eyes, human eyes, watching everything. Earth didn't raise its voice. It didn't shout or declare war. It just disappeared its enemies, not through chaos, but through control, absolute and cold. The eye finally spoke. Commander, all nearby systems show irregular silence. Multiple species have gone dark. Varek's stomach twisted. It wasn't just the Dravari. The echo had already begun. One by one, the loudest, boldest, most curious species were falling silent, not from battle, not from plague, but from quiet warnings left behind like footprints in ash. He looked at the stars and realized something deeper than fear. This was never about winning a war. It was about making sure no war would ever happen. Earth had turned itself into a myth, a ghost story for the stars. Every diplomat would whisper. Every general would hesitate. Every conqueror would pause before looking at the blue planet again. Because they didn't know what Earth would do. They only knew what Earth could do. Varek opened his personal log one final time. To anyone left listening, he said softly, they offered peace quietly. They warned us patiently. We didn't believe them. He stood at the edge of the council tower, looking up through the shattered roof, stars swimming in the sky above like cold eyes. Now we echo through the stars as a memory, and Earth watches. The stars no longer whispered back. Commander Varek drifted through the black void. Number home to return to, no orders to follow. His ship was now a tomb with working lights. A lonely capsule carrying the last memory of a lost civilization. He had traveled far from Earth, far from Dravari space, far from anything familiar. But the silence followed him. A silence not born from peace, but from a message too loud to speak again. He sat in the control chair, not as a commander, not as a scout, but as a witness. The only thing he could still offer the galaxy was a voice. And so, he turned on the broadcast beacon one last time, one final chance to be heard. Log 4977, Commander. Varek, he began, last known survivor of the Dravari fleet. His voice was calm, but tired. It sounded like it came from the bottom of a deep well. If you are hearing this, then you are lucky. You are alive. He paused, staring at a star cluster in the distance. You must know by now Earth is not what we thought it was. They were never primitive. They were never reckless. They were waiting. He blinked slowly, eyes heavier than ever. We thought their silence was weakness. We thought their peace was fear. But silence is a choice, and peace for them is a weapon. He stood up and walked to the observation window. looking out at the same stars he once believed were full of possibilities. "We tested them," he said quietly. "Not with weapons, not with battleships, but with curiosity. And curiosity was the first mistake. They never raised their voice," he continued. "They never fired the first shot, but when they responded, the sound was so quiet it erased worlds." He pressed a button, and the screen lit up with the names of systems now gone dark, not destroyed, not conquered, just silent, like someone had closed the door gently and locked it from the outside. "Visited Earth," he whispered. "I stood in the shadows of their past. I walked across their ruins, and I felt their scars. They are not monsters," he said. "They are survivors, and survival has made them something else." He took out a small metal chip, the last data unit he carried. He placed it into the core drive and set it to copy across subspace. One file, one message, repeating forever into the stars. A warning and a lesson. "Do not send ships," Varek said. "Do not send probes. Do not send questions. Because they won't reply," he added. "They'll listen, they'll watch, and if they choose to answer." He looked down. "It will be the last thing you hear." He sat back down, his voice trembling now. Not with fear, but with understanding. "Earth does not avoid war because they cannot fight," he said. "They avoid it because they know how easily they could win. And the only thing more terrifying than a species that knows how to destroy is a species that chooses not to." He ended the log with one last sentence, one he had carried since the day he read the message carved into the floor of his empty home world. Peace is offered, not begged for. The beacon lit up, sending the log outward in every direction, into every corner of the galaxy, across time and space, hoping someone would listen before it was too late. And as the signal faded into the stars, Virek closed his eyes. Outside, the universe looked peaceful again. But now he knew better. Somewhere behind the quiet, behind the blue oceans and soft clouds, Earth was watching, not as a hero, not as a villain, but as something older than both. A keeper of peace, with the power to end all things. Choosing, every day, not to